There's really no way around it. All of us have a sense of nostalgia for one game or another in our lives. Oftentimes, this can make a game that's blatantly horrible seem good just because we used to think it was good when we were younger. I think being nostalgic about games is healthy. It's part of our lives as gamers, but it's also good to see through these thoughts and not be blinded by what we used to think. Every now and then, it's good to take a look at an old game and really size it up for what it is.
I recently decided to do just that, and here I am, talking about LEGO Rock Raiders. Released just before the turn of the century, this game is pretty far back in my own history as a gamer. It's one of those titles that brings back so many memories from hearing one single sound effect or voice clip. Before LEGO focused almost exclusively on franchise games like Star Wars and Batman, they brought us a variety of interesting titles of various genres. I've played most of them, but Rock Raiders was definitely my game for more than one reason. Even though I loved all things LEGO, Rock Raiders really sparked my imagination back then. I collected every single set in the series, so when the game came out, I was ecstatic. I have to say, even playing it almost 14 years later, the concept of this game is still pretty cool. RTS-style gameplay mixed with underground exploration, mining, resource gathering, fighting against the elements and the creatures of a foreign planet. This was and still is a pretty unique game. I'm not gonna lie though, my nostalgic memories of this one are crowded with frustrations too. So if the concept is so cool, what really made LEGO Rock Raiders fall flat? Well, like I said before, this game at its core is an RTS. You assign units to do tasks and build up your base much in the same manner as Age of Empires. Rock Raiders branches away from most RTSs in that it doesn't focus on combat and conquest, but on exploration and resource gathering. Now right off the bat, this is one of the things that's kind of an issue. I love the idea of not focusing on just building an army and waging war on enemy civilizations, but combat adds a lot of excitement, whereas resource gathering can be, well, boring. To be fair, there are wild monsters and creatures that are out to get you in some levels, but they add little to no interest because they are 1, comically easy to kill, 2, bugged to death, and 3, extremely uninteresting to fight. The only way to defend your base against rock monsters and slimy slugs is to have a Rock Raider with a weapon equipped and hit the Action Stations button. This causes them to go on alert, which means they try to counter the threat. Sometimes. This is probably the biggest, most obvious flaw with the game. The AI of your Rock Raiders is mediocre at best. The time that it takes for them to decide to do something is often ridiculously dragged out. LEGO tried to make the game complex and add depth with things like hunger and the priorities menu, and it worked to an extent, but more often than not, it can make typical tasks an absolute chore. When a unit is hungry, it's not uncommon for them to completely ignore what you tell them and just do whatever they want. Half of them reject your authority and the other half have severe attention span issues. They'll place dynamite to blow up a wall, run 3 feet, and then get distracted and start shoveling dirt. As many elements as there are that make a great RTS, responsive units and commands is one that is absolutely necessary. It's not a feature, it's just making the game work properly. It's incredibly frustrating when I need to gather resources fast to get my base going, and none of my units will get in the small transport truck and insist on carrying ore by hand. Aside from that truck, which helps a lot, most of the vehicles, and hell, most of the buildings have very limited uses and you'll find yourself ignoring them in 9 out of 10 missions. The Chrome Crusher is such a badass vehicle, but I used it in literally 1 mission because the benefit of having it around doesn't outweigh the cost. All vehicles cost energy crystals, but most levels require a certain number of crystals in order for you to beat them. Building things like a large mobile laser cutter and the granite grinder is pointless when you can just have Rock Raiders themselves drill the walls. Don't get me wrong, all the vehicles are cool, but most levels can be beaten faster and more efficiently without them, making it pointless to even consider spawning them. Even then, when you do need to use them, they're mostly clunky and, well, come on, seriously? Slow! How slow does this need to be, honestly? Slow and clunky is a good overall description of most of the gameplay. Beating a level is almost always drill a few walls and build a power path, upgrade the tool store, build a teleport pad, upgrade that, build a power station, upgrade that, build a support station, upgrade that, now collect 25 energy crystals, and you did it. And most of that is just waiting and watching your units walk. And then they step on a spider. Why are these in the game? Not to mention that building construction is incredibly sketchy. Each building requires a certain number of ore and energy crystals to be placed on the building site, as well as construction fence things, and then it exists. I don't know exactly how it works, but the selection of which units put resources on the building site and which ones just walk directly through it without a passing glance seems to be completely at random. Sometimes the guy who's tired and hungry, stopping every 3 seconds to take a breath and farthest away, gets chosen to put the last energy crystal instead of the one who's literally standing on the build site. When you're relying on these units to put together your base so it can do things like, oh, I don't know, supply them with oxygen before they die, it can be extremely infuriating. Even that wouldn't be so much of an issue if this guy right here didn't feel the need to remind you every 30 seconds. And why doesn't he have a hat? Why don't any of them have hats? They have hats here. Why not here? In fact, pretty much everything in the game has a voice clip to go with it, which is actually really cool, especially for a game this old. But when Chief won't stop saying the word rubble every time you leave your mouse idle for just a second, it starts to be a lot less cool. The variation in the scenery and level design is pretty neat, but even with added objectives like finding rock raiders trapped by cave-ins, they always tack on the collect X amount of energy crystals at the end, so it always feels like you win for doing the exact same thing. That's a lot of negative, right? Well, let's not get hung up on it. Every game has its shortcomings, and even if this one has plenty of things to pick on, I'd be lying if I said I didn't enjoy playing it. I just mentioned a moment ago that everything is voice acted, and I wasn't kidding. You'll get a briefing from Chief at the start of every mission, and he'll congratulate you on beating it at the end as well. Hover over a building, vehicle, rock wall, monster, or anything for a few seconds, and one of the crew will tell you what it is. You'll be notified whenever you find a new energy crystal, or when you open up a new cavern. The only thing odd about this is that in the actual cutscenes, the characters don't say anything, they just grunt and make weird noises. It's charming, to be sure, it's just oddly inconsistent with the rest of the game. Something I've always loved is being able to upgrade my rock raiders. Upgrading allows them to hold one more item at a time and gives you the ability to name them, resulting in my all-star team of Jerome, Francisco, Hank, and Jason Statham. Because there's a character limit. These units aren't just limited to one single mission. They carry over, and you'll often be pleasantly surprised to see the smiling face of Jason Statham stepping out of the teleporter to greet you. It also makes you feel like you're progressing, because in later levels you'll already have units trained in explosives or as pilots and drivers, so you won't need to waste extra time training them. It feels like you're building a skilled team of units as you play more of the game. While the graphics aren't exactly good, even by the standards of 1999, the visuals are very defined and the game feel is totally solid. It's easy to understand how the game works just by taking a quick glance at it. When your power station energizes your base, it just feels that much more like an operational mining base. The sound of rock raiders setting down ore and crystals on a build site holds the weight that it should hold. And the same goes for drilling walls, shooting rock monsters, even just shoveling dirt. It all feels like it should feel. Maybe my favorite part about this game is this fantastic soundtrack. It's a little cheesy, a little charming, but damn does it completely fit the whole mood of the game. There are very few tracks, but each one manages to perfectly portray the theme of subterranean exploration while still being fun and even a little inspirational. A mission will start and Chief will tell you that you need to build a support station before your team runs out of oxygen. And then the music starts up and you don't see this morbid goal as threatening or scary, you feel empowered and motivated, and the mood is set as fun and quirky. Seriously, it may not seem like much at first, but these songs are all preposterously catchy and totally upbeat. The missions branch into different paths that you can take, making the campaign feel like a less complex version of Star Fox 64. This is cool because it allows you to replay the game and take a different route. Or if you can't beat a mission, you could try a different one and see if that one's more your speed. This, coupled with the slowly increasing difficulty level by level, makes the game sufficiently challenging throughout.
So it may not be the best RTS, or even the best LEGO game for that matter. Rock Raiders is a great concept and so close to being an incredible game, but the flaws really weigh down on the final product. If you're patient and you can work around the bugs, LEGO Rock Raiders will provide you with a lot of enjoyment. What are your thoughts on LEGO Rock Raiders? Let me know in the comments down below, and hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. You can subscribe so you don't miss any more in the future, and if you did miss it, check out my Kirby Air Ride video on the annotation. This has been Sunder, and I will see you next time.